Mic is working.
This one. Don't worry, we'll get it. I'll keep on talking until they figure it out. We got Nitish Sakhuja, JFL New Faces.
That's about it.
That's about it? That's like the one worth mentioning? Winnipeg. I was about to say Halifax, but it's a Winnipeg Comedy Festival. It's just straight OG in the game. What was that one claim that you always wanted people to know early in the game? You were the comic with the best weed in the game? Earlier, right? Still is. He doesn't even have to. He doesn't have to say it anymore. Everybody knows it. And then to my left, anybody here heard of the Corner Comedy Club? Fucking right. The one and only. The one and only Corner Comedy Club. It's been around for the past 10 plus years.
9 years in September.
9 years in September. 9 years in September. We have the founder and owner, Mr. Joe Tuccito, Scarborough's finest. Let's give it up for Joe. He's siding from time. Yes. So now, for those of you who do not know these two gentlemen, I feel most of us know these guys and we know their pedigree, but for those of you that don't know, hands up if you've never heard of these two. I just want to get a... All right, perfect. So if you've never heard of the Corner Comedy Club, it's one of the staple comedy clubs in the city. You have your Yuck Yucks, you have your Absolute Comedies, you have your comedy bars, but the Corner is just, to me personally, a comics comedy club. And when I say that, I feel, if you've ever been to a New York comedy club, this to me has the closest feel to it. And Joe has done a really good job in curating his comedy space. And Nitish, if I'm correct, you are officially the first signed comedian that took Corner Comedy, right?
Yeah, that was something that early in the days, Joe was like creating. He was going to be like a manager.
Yeah.
He thought, I think. So I signed to him, and then kind of just did nothing with it. And then, well, we're sitting on the stage today, so.
Well, the whole point of that little tidbit was just to show the connection that you guys have shared with each other over the years, right?
Yeah. Joe's my dog.
You know, Joe opened up the Corner and created this amazing dojo for us to train in.
We were at this festival called Puff Jam. It's like this comedy / like acid and mushroom festival, and that's kind of like where me and this guy hung out for the first time. We're tripping balls on acid, and we're sitting in this field, and this guy's like, "I'm gonna open a comedy club," and I'm like, "Okay, man," right? And then we hung out, we became friends, and we came back, and I'm like, "Oh shit, he actually did it," and then he kept doing it. You know what I mean? And now it's the spot. It's fucking sick. So.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so at that time when I said that to Nitish, I had made a plan.
Check.
One day I had a dream. I wanted to open a comedy club. So I made this like 10-year plan, and here's all the things I'm going to do to make it happen. And I remember this, out of all the goals I ever had in my life, this was the one thing that I said, I'm going to keep my mouth shut about it. I'm not going to tell anybody. And a lot of it was out of fear that like somebody was going to do it before me. And when I had known Nitish from being involved with the comedy scene, but when we were at that festival, it was maybe a month before I was going to start construction on the place. So I was like, okay, I can talk about it now.
Nice.
You know? So he was one of the first people that I verbally said, oh, I'm going to open up a comedy club. Yeah, just a little backstory.
And what year was that? That was
2015.
2015, yeah.
2015. And how long did it take for it to get off the ground?
So I made a 10-year plan, and the doors opened within 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
And within that 5 years, because here's the thing, I know you opened multiple locations. Was it already successful enough for you to be like, boom, we're booming, I can open up this one, and I can open up this one? Or were you just like, I'm going gung-ho and just opening 3 at the same time?
Opening more than one location was never part of the plan. I just wanted to have, like, when I would hear stories of the Comedy Cellar in New York or stories of the Comedy Store in LA, I wanted Toronto to have this flagship comedy club that would be known, like, to comedians all over the world.
Yeah.
Like this one place that if you're in Toronto, you got to check out this club. So the idea was just to have like that one location.
Yeah.
But if anybody knows, the original location was like maybe 1/10 of this room. It seated 30 people, shoulder to shoulder. It was a 500 square foot venue. And a lot of people would walk in there and they'd be like, this will never work, right? But we all made it work together, and when those shows would be sold out, like a week in advance, that's when the thought came to mind to have like a satellite space.
Right.
And then an opportunity presented itself when a friend of mine was closing down a bar, so we just took over it and made a second location.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Is it tough to run a comedy club? Obviously it is, but what is the toughest thing? Filling seats, comedians, bills, like what is the hardest thing as a comedy club owner?
Well, it's different now than it was when I first opened. I could not have had the foresight of like all the different challenges I would have faced opening it up. I was just more like high on the idea of getting it open and having this utopia in my mind that like everyone's gonna get along, every comic's gonna want to be a part of it. That comics were gonna want to see it come into fruition as well.
Right.
But the most challenging feature about like opening that club is there's so many different working parts because you have audience, you have talent, you have staff, and then you also have, like you said, the bills and everything, right?
Yeah.
So finding a harmony amongst all of those working parts was the most challenging thing. Making sure everybody was happy, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody has different needs and desires, especially amongst the comedians as well. So.
Well, see, that's the biggest thing now, like, because you're dealing with a lot of different comedian personalities. You're dealing with their dreams and hopes and aspirations. How do you determine who to put on? I'm sure that's one of the hardest things to determine, right? How do you figure out which comics you're going to put on, who's deserving of it? Because there's so many people hitting you up. How do you go through that and filter it out and curate it in a way that, like, do you suit it to what you like? Do you just try to stay open-ended and try to do a variety of every style?
So in the beginning, there was like a divide because I wasn't aware that there was going to be a problem in the comedy community where certain comics who were dedicated to playing another club weren't allowed to play my club.
Right.
Like
Yucks.
a conflict.
I'll say
Absolute yucks, whoever.
It's like a conflict of interest, and
Yeah.
I understand that. It is what it is. So in the beginning, I had to just be able to work with whoever was available.
Right.
And it was typically the people that were just always in my face asking me for opportunity, right?
This guy over
Hell
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
To this day.
To this
day.
Nitish is relentless.
8 a.m. Yo, any spots today? Even though I know all the spots are full. You know what I mean? But there might be a spot, so.
But today, the way I typically book my shows is like, okay, so every month I get over 100 comedians submitting their availability, right? So the process of elimination that I currently work with is I have this group of comics who have been there from the beginning. And I believe in loyalty. They helped make the club what it is today. Without them, it wouldn't be here, right? Mm-hmm. So I always focus on that pool of comics first. I check those boxes. Next thing I'm looking for is a diverse lineup. And when I say diverse, I just want to be clear that I'm not trying to like look at people's race, color, creed, gender, sexual.
It's not boxes you're checking off.
I don't mean diverse in that sense. I mean diverse in comedy style. Like, are you going to have like, a comic who's very high energy, a comic who's a bit lower energy, you're going to have a storyteller comic, and you're going to have like a punchline comic. That's what I look for. So is it diverse? I think of the range of people that come to the club, and we'll have people from their early 20s right into their late 50s. It's like a wide demographic. So I try to think, if I came in there with my girlfriend, with a group of guy friends, or if my aunt from out of town is with me, is everyone that's going to be at the show going to be able to have at least one of those acts on the show that are like, oh, I like that part,
Yeah.
And then obviously you need a strong closer, and you need a really good host, right?
Right.
So those are the key components I'm looking for. And then with the newer wave of comics that have been coming in, I always make sure that I reserve at least one of those spots to someone who's still like working their way up the ladder. Yeah, if that makes sense.
What would you say to the people? I'm gonna get to you, Nitty. But what do you say to the people that get discouraged when they keep on applying and trying to submit and they don't get chosen? Because, you know, it's easy for a lot of people to be like, yo, screw this place. They don't ever book me. Or, you know, screw this guy, Joe. He don't rate me. Like,
yeah, it is very difficult. What do you say to those guys? I would consider myself an empath, so I always like get in my head about like, oh, what is this comic thinking? They haven't been booked in a long time. You know, I'm trying to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I said, with over 100 like well-deserved, talented comedians submitting their availability, it's very hard to get everybody stage time. So what I would say to anybody who's ever thinking like, oh shit, I haven't been booked in a while, you'd be surprised if one of those comics messaged me and it's like, hey, it's been a month since I've been booked. Can I get some stage time? They're instantly on the top of my head, top of the list. So
there it is. Just hit him up. Hit Joe up one time. A DM. That's all. IG, right? All right. This guy though never gets a problem getting his time on stage. And you've been doing that.
Excuse me? Where? At the corner?
At the corner.
But in general. It used to be at the corner. I used to get a lot more spots, but that was because there was less comics applying and shit. And now there's so many, and I get less spots. So it's nice, but also like, fuck you guys. You know, those are my spots.
But it's deserving because, like, you've been busting your ass. You've been the most loyal. You've been there. You used to run the High on Trees podcast there. You've been there since day one. You're still there every night, still calling in as if it was the first time you guys opened. And guys, if you don't know Nitish, most of us do, but for those of you that don't know him, this guy is one of the most hardest working comics, one of the most dedicated comics. When he wants to do something, he does it, and he kind of gets really addicted to it, whether it be weed, vaping, losing weight, working out, comedy.
Can I vape up here?
I don't
All
care.
right. So.
If you need to. Did you bring it?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Okay. I'm not saying anything. But how long have you been doing it now?
Comedy?
Yeah.
November will be 14 years.
14-year veteran. Oh. Wow. So when did you start to feel you were actually a comedian? What year did you say, you know what, I does this?
Honestly, there's like, you go through waves. Like from day one, the first time I did comedy, if you asked me after my first set, I would have told you I was a comedian, right? But then day two, you're like, I don't know anymore. You know?
Yeah.
Like to this day, I still go through imposter syndrome where I'm like, yo, am I actually like a comedian, you know?
Well,
but
despite doing all those hours, you still ask that? Or do you ask, am I a good comedian?
No, when I feel like a comedian, I know I'm a good comedian. But sometimes I don't feel like a comedian at all, you know? Because you're like just running around the city kind of feeling like a chicken whose head got cut off, you know? Like, you just keep doing shows and like, sometimes you'll go through a 4 or 5 year period where nothing happens for you. All you're doing is just endless sets and it feels like fucking nothing. Right. But then one day you'll get this show and you're like, yo, it's kind of worth it still, you know? And then,
you know when guys want a headline and you could tell they're not ready, right? At what point did you feel you were a headliner, but then when did you actually become a headliner?
I thought probably like 5 or 6 years in that I could headline, you know? But I know for sure I could probably do the time, but it wouldn't be good.
It wouldn't be good.
It wouldn't be worth going last for, you know? I think now like I'm a decent headliner, you know? Still needs some work, I think, because I don't get enough hour or 45-minute sets consistently. It's usually like 20s. And then when you do a proper headlining set, you do like 45 minutes to an hour. And then I just got to piece together all these little sets that I've done. So sometimes when I do a long set, I'm putting jokes together that have never been together before. You know?
What do you think, Joe? Does the comic determine if they're a headliner, or does the game determine if they're a headliner? Or is it a bit of both?
Well, I don't even think I definitely don't think I determine, right? Yeah. So like, I think that's a question for each individual to like, ask themselves, right? And then it's also going to be reflective upon the people who are willing to book them on that
Right.
spot. But one thing to make clear with the corner is that we don't really have a comedy format. Like our shows don't have a format of like headliner. So most of the comedy clubs in the city at the time when I opened up had that type of format where you have a host, a middle, maybe a guest act, and then a headliner doing a 40-minute set, right? Now I would go and watch some of those shows, and it's already hard enough to get Canadian fans to really respect Canadian artists until they become famous south of the border.
Right.
So you're gonna see so many comics headlining or performing on comedy shows in the city that are equal or even better than a lot of the talent that's south of the border.
Right.
And that's my honest opinion, right?
I agree.
And I've gone down south to watch comedy shows, and I'm like, I could pick 24 comics that play the corner regularly that can throw down just as good, if not better, than these ones down here.
True. Everywhere I go, there's Toronto comics could hold their own.
You know, Dave Chappelle just came down recently, and I guess we were talking about it, how he chose Toronto specifically because he wanted to practice in front of our worldly crowd, because it helps him determine whether his jokes will be worldly enough when he travels internationally. So, right, he uses Toronto as his like testing ground. So I guess it speaks a lot towards our crowd also. Our crowds are smarter. The people are a bit more intelligent up here. Not saying any Americans here tonight. Dumbass Americans.
Doing comedy in Canada is like if you were a fighter and every day you train to fight, but then no fights come to your city ever. So you're just really good, and then but it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? So
But it's like once you get thrown in, it's like boom,
yeah,
you're kicking ass.
but they don't come. So it's like if you want to fight, you gotta like move. But yo, it's expensive to move. You know what I'm saying? You have to get a visa.
Yeah.
You have to do all this. You're like, fuck. I guess I'll just practice here forever. You know, and you
how-
get sad.
And how long did it take for you to get your visa?
Well, 14 years. I should have it by August, and then I'm gonna get the fuck out of here.
Let's give it up for Diddy. He got his visa.
Hell yeah! Thank you. Thank you.
Can you believe it? Just joking. I'm sorry.
So on the topic of like this headliner, like when you're ready or whatnot, like the way I see it in the comedy scene in Toronto today is it's very hard for comics to get 30-minute or plus sets, right? A lot of the stages where they play, they're getting maybe 5, 10, 15, 20-minute sets, right? So I could only see that the comic can piece together a longer set, but you say, when does a comic know they're ready? A part of me wants to say, you know, the second you get an opportunity, you're ready, go and do it. But as a booker, like sometimes I think there's a double-edged sword, because you might go and take that opportunity, and if you know in your heart that you don't have 40 minutes of material and you're gonna go up there and just wing it, you're gonna disappoint that booker or that club, and then possibly never get booked again, right?
Right.
So, I don't know, man.
I always wondered if there's like a rule or a standard where you can say if you don't have like a certain amount of hours on the road, if you've done the whole gauntlet, you've opened,
Some people
you've
can even
middled,
do
you've
that, and
headlined.
like it's not. I think the ultimate test is if you're gonna headline, you go to other comics and you say, "Hey, I'm headlining," and then you look at their reaction, and they're like, "Oh, sick!" You know,
Right.
then you're like, "Okay,"
You know, like if they go, your own show? You're producing it? Oh, yeah.
because that'll tell you a lot.
Yeah, I find, because there were moments early in my career when I was given headliner spots because I had like a little, strong early run, but I did go through some imposter syndrome because I knew like I had a strong 20 and that was it. Anything after that, like I didn't know what to do. And when they would book me more and more for these headlining gigs, I was like, I was going through that. Should I take this? Do I even have the juice to feed, this hungry audience that just saw me last year or like a few months ago? So like, I always wondered at what point can a comic truly feel that they're a headliner? And I think it has to be through their peers and through the community when they can all agree like, no, that guy's good enough and that guy's ready. Sometimes guys are ready and they don't think they're ready, but people be like, no, you can headline. And then there's guys that are the complete opposite. We're like, I got this, but they're totally not. You know, they don't got the juice.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like sometimes the people who are like overly confident and they're like, oh yeah, I can do that much time. It's like, it's kind of obvious you're lying to yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
the ones that probably are more capable are the ones that are doubting themselves.
Right, right.
You know, it's a strange thing with that whole thing you guys are talking about, imposter syndrome. I think that's very natural for a lot of people, especially in the arts, you know, to have this like dialogue in your head where it's, oh man, I'm a fraud. If people really knew like what was going on inside of my head and they found out like I'm not worthy of this job.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're out there like in any artistic avenue and you're putting something together and you're creating something, like you're already past a roadblock that most people never pass, right? You're just making it and you're putting it out there and letting the world decide, you know?
Right,
So
right.
I commend those people a lot.
Oh, for sure, man. It takes a lot. But like, Nitty, this one's for you. 14 years in the game, you still, how many shows a week would you say?
Well, the city has changed after the pandemic. Like before the pandemic, we could easily do like 20 shows a week, no problem. You know?
20. This guy
Now,
was doing 20 shows a week. Do the math. 20 divided by 7. At least 3 shows a day.
if you wanted to, you could do that, no problem, right? Now it's like, I don't know what happened. I guess restaurants aren't open past 10 o'clock anymore. Like there's nothing, the vibe is just not there anymore. Now, to have a good week where I'm hustling, I did like 7 shows in a week, you know? And that's all crammed in from like Wednesday to Sunday,
Right.
right? And I don't know, it's not what it used to be, right?
Check,
But
check.
I'll still go to open mics though, because like, what's
Because you're a
left?
true student of the game.
What's left? There's not that many shows left.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap this up soon. If there's something that you could tell, you know, that stupid question. If there's something you could, how about this? We always learn hard lessons throughout the game just through experience. What's something you wished you learned sooner?
That none of these accolades or anything matter. You know? It's just do the fucking if you have love for the art form, like all that other shit is just there to bring you down. You know what I mean? Because there's like trying to get a festival and all that shit. There's only X amount of spots and there's thousands of comics, and there's a pretty good chance that you're not gonna get it, even no matter how good you are. And if you do get it, how are you gonna feel the next year when you don't get it? You know what I'm saying? You just be happy for whoever has it. Be happy that it exists, and some people get to experience it. Just grind and just be funny, because at the end of the day, that's the real fucking prize, you know?
Right.
I guess. And I say that as somebody who hardly gets any festivals or anything, so I have to feel that way, you know what I mean? Or else I'm gonna fucking shoot myself in a basement somewhere, you know? So I have to think positively, you know? So I encourage you to as well.
Man, he feels like his new faces wasn't nothing because it was.
I got it in a
pandemic.
fucking pandemic, all right? I grew up watching Just for Laughs on TV, all right? And there would be 500,000 people in the audience, and I got it in the pandemic. There was 20 people in the audience. They put fake people in, there was dummies in the audience. And I was like, this is my life, bro. This is what I deserve, you know? And then I was sad for 5 years. I got happy yesterday, okay? Fucking working on it. So just fucking, I don't know. Be happy, work on the art, and fuck everything else, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we can clap for that one. We can clap for that one. And Joe, I don't know how many people here are looking to open a comedy club, but I know there's a
Do
lot.
it.
We need more. We need more. We need to like strengthen the comedy scene out here. The more clubs, the more people have options to go out and watch comedy. And to those that are running and producing comedy shows all over the city, namely Scarborough, June 21st, Scarborough is a joke, Filipino edition, jokes. You as a booker and as a guy that just sees comedians all the time, like, what is your number one advice to, I guess, more so the up-and-comers, or just in general to comics, that they should take into consideration when they try to holler at any booker, not just you? Like how
whether
to
you're
present
producing
themselves.
shows or you're just performing, I think the first thing that comes to mind is just consistency, right? Just constantly over and over doing it and not giving up on something just because it's not working out. Like, oh, I tried to start this Wednesday night show at this bar, nobody's coming out, so I move on to the next thing, right? Mm-hmm. Or I keep trying to get on at this club, I never get my chance, so I just give up on it, right? Fuck, man, there's this book. I'm not gonna start quoting books here, but this lesson that I learned from it, it's called The War of Art, right? It's like a play on the book, The Art of War. And it talks about like anybody who seeks to go out on any artistic endeavor, like with whatever passion you bring to that calling of yours, you're gonna experience an exact equal amount of resistance to that, right? There's going to be that exact amount of force trying to stop you, convince you not to go through with it, right? And this guy talks about, the difference between the amateur and the pro. And the amateur is the one who's out there making a lot of noise, telling everyone, yo, I could headline, I got 40 minutes. They're gloating about it, But the pro just consistently gets to work every day, right? An amateur will sit there and wait for inspiration to strike and then go out and make a move on it. But the pro gets up every day, works on his craft, and he gives a space for inspiration to come out through the back door, right? Mm-hmm. So for a pro, the pro would say, when does inspiration strike? Every morning at 9 a.m. when I pull up my pen and pad, right? So just consistent. Don't give up. Like if I wasn't consistent with the corner, I would have given up on it within the first year just because the money's not working out, the people aren't happy, it's not coming into, the vision that I had for it. And if I was so stuck on the way I thought it should be, I wouldn't have had any space for it to become what it is, which is way better than I even imagined. So, and consistency.
Consistency, folks.
And if I can quote a book, if you warm up a banana and jerk off with it, it's Playboy. This is very nice. That's it. Sorry, continue.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to our esteemed guests. Nitish Sakhuja, Joe Tuccito.
No, it's beautiful.
If ever you want to go to the comedy club, check it out at thecorner.ca, right? Thecornercomedyclub.ca.
Thecornercomedy.com.
Thecornercomedy.com. Sorry. It's in the alleyway just off of Duncan in between Queen and Richmond. It's a really, really cool incognito entrance. It's a nice little experience. Take your girl on a date, freak her out for a little second before you bring her into the comedy club. Folks, give it up one more time. We're going to be doing this every month, at least once a month. We're going to have 2 guests every time. I believe next month, actually, we'll tell you guys later. It's not solidified yet. But feel free to play some more games and hang out. We'll be doing
It's Russell Peters. It's Russell Peters next month, so tell everybody and make sure you guys come back.
Yes, yes. All right. Have a good night, folks. Thank you. Enjoy yourselves.
Thanks.
Thanks again, boys.